I may as well get started. A couple of weeks ago, we started working on changes to the spend quick action for time logs to support setting a time log category. I had to raise a few smaller MRs first, database migrations, etc. I finally got this one polished a little bit, passed for a review yesterday, and there's a couple of valid comments on the review. Namely, it's kind of unfinished. So I think we're suggesting putting it behind a feature flag. Let's just double check that. Yeah. Because we have to create the time log categories manually at the moment. So yeah, let's just pop it behind a feature flag. There's also some slightly weird behavior we could potentially look at. Yeah, I've already got that branch checked out. Let's find an issue. When we spend, automatically sets this category placeholder. No, I don't know. Any way to prevent that at the moment. Yeah, let's focus on adding the feature flag first. So let's find the docs. Developing feature flag. That's it. So create a new feature flag so we can run this. Should we call it? Remember if our feature flags use hyphens or snake case, kebab case or snake case. Let's have a look. Feature flags. CML. So looks like snake case. Time log. Action. That. So used to hide unfinished code. That sounds good to me. Group, I think, is project management 49. Original issue. Let's just link to the merge request. Merge request. Feature flag DRI. Maybe Abe. Oh, the feature issue URL I might have got wrong there. No, maybe not. That'll do. Okay, and we need to check that. So feature enable. Width. Oh, already got one here, so we'll just borrow this. So how do we It's the tricky thing. Where do we want to? So I'm going to duplicate all this code, one with or without the feature flag. So I guess probably quick action. This one. So where we do spend. This bit here, I wonder if we can make it configurable somehow. If spend time message, do that. Time, support.
Hello.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
This time I'm gonna go with good enough.
Average. Care to share or for another time?
Last week I had flu and now that passed, but I've got the leftover. I've got an ear that's been completely clogged for almost 1 week, and that's really getting on my nerves.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Is it just a wait and it'll get better soon, sort of?
I hope it gets better soon, because I'm really I'm on the verge of getting out my ear and cleaning it from the inside. So what are you doing today?
So just while I was waiting, I was going to pop a feature flag on. What should the feature flag be? Should it be on the project or the group or the user? Let's figure that out in a minute. So you remember a few weeks ago we worked on adding the category on the quick action.
Yep.
I had to split off a separate MO. I didn't have to, but it felt like it would be a better way of doing it to do the migration that we needed to do in a separate MR.
Yep.
So I did that. That was approved and merged, and then I kind of circled back to this, removed the migration, sent it for review last night, and a couple of really valid points here. Number one, because there's no sort of not only no UI, but there's not even an API to manage time log categories.
Yeah.
It's kind of, on .com, it would be really weird to expose this. On top of that, we've got this weird thing where it automatically does this.
Yeah.
So the suggestion is like pop it behind a feature flag, and maybe we'll spend 5 minutes digging in to see if we can stop it behaving like this, or if we want it to still behave like, but yeah, so the first thing I was doing was the feature flag, but even that, I started asking myself a question about, well, should the feature flag purely be cosmetic? Like, if somebody, this wouldn't prevent this working. So I don't need to put a date, but billable or whatever we're going to do, that would still work. Even though it doesn't appear to, but so I hadn't saved that. I was trying to figure out what we should scope this to. And I can't even remember if I do project, does it, so what would it be? Quick action target dot project, or I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, target.project, because the target is the issue or MR.
I'm not sure if I've got access in this context. I think so, but I guess we'll find out. projects. Let's just try that for now. I can never remember, like, if I do that, and can they switch the feature flag on at the group level, or would I specifically have to check the group and the project to handle that? Or
I think that's going to work at the project level.
so if I enabled the feature flag at the group level, it wouldn't kind of say, oh, the project's in that group, so the feature's enabled for that.
Well, I have the same check for the using the project for the auto cancel pipeline that I'm working on, and I enabled that globally on GDK, and that still registers as enabled for the project.
So we maybe need to test it. So this doesn't work, I've just determined. Now, does it not work because this is erroring, or does it not work for a different reason? So let's just remove that first and see if that fixes it. Yeah, I wonder if the globally enabled, though, I think that kind of trumps everything, actually. I'm not convinced that that'll, but we'll do a test. No, that's still doesn't. I'm guessing you can't use a method. So I need to see if anyone has any, what would you call it, conditionals in params. Oh, params do. Okay, okay. We should do that. That should work. Spend time for I've lost it now. There we go. Let's do. Did you have anything that you particularly wanted to dive into today?
No, if you were not going to work on this, I would have probably had a look at the, they started splitting up the time logs resolver into its own finder and the resolver.
Mm-hmm.
So that's merged now, and we could have a look at actually fixing the finder issues.
Cool. That sounds good. I don't know what I've done. How can I understand why why that quick action is not available?
Logs?
Maybe. Gonna have to look more. I think I might truncate it first. What do I just RM it? I can never really remember. Or what if I echo to log session? Okay, so it's nice and empty now. So I'll reload this. And then what, look for this file name, maybe. Not finding that in there. I don't even really know what I'd be looking for, to be honest. I would have thought if it was erroring, like,
Oh,
we're back in action. Okay, weird.
it was
Bit of lag.
so the feature flag is not enabled.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's try it for the group then. The group should remember. 33. And funnily enough, I don't actually remember how to enable a flag for do you just pass it as a second param?
Oh, I don't know that. I always use the global one. Yeah, looks like
good. I mean, we can immediately test it, right, by feature enabled. So first of all, I'll try doing that, which we know will definitely, question mark, I missed, haven't I? I know that will be false. Ah. Yeah, okay, cool. Then if I try passing the group, that should definitely be true. And then if I try doing the project, what's the project ID, Marco?
For the 3? Oh, I don't know that.
6 or 7, I think. Oh, I hate it when I get this. I've been complaining about this recently.
Oh, that did happen to me as well a few times.
Any ideas?
No, usually
7.
Oh, 7. Reloading the page, or I think a couple of times I actually
False.
restart the GTA.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I'll do that probably in a minute if it's still not. Can I make this smarter? Can I make this smarter? Because this bit's repeated.
But that didn't work, so enabling that for the groups.
Yeah, so I need to do it for the project specifically, right? So feature enable. So let me just triple check from the front end. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to kick it. Maybe. Yeah, I wasn't sure whether to do something like I don't know exactly what.
Yeah, I would remove the base because you're returning that at the end.
How do you concatenate? Is it this to it? I don't know.
I liked the string interpolation one.
You did.
That's how I would have done it.
And then just put that in there like that.
Oh, okay, okay, I see.
Is that how you had in mind or not?
Yeah, that saves you from returning from one lane of code.
Yeah. Right. So just to check, we don't think this will be updated yet. No. And let me just check. Can I do that? Good. But then if I feature enable this for project 933 for type.
Project 7.
Thank you. Group 33, right?
Yep.
I
Whoa.
guess I don't need to set the type when I'm setting the flag, only when I'm getting the flag.
Hmm. Wonder if that's a cache problem.
Yeah, I think so too. Turn it off and on again.
Yeah.
More time before. Mm-hmm. I don't know what sway over it's to do this. Oh, maybe we should do some Good Samaritan work. Did you see the console error? I've noticed that's been around for a while, I think.
Yeah, that's been there for quite a while.
Maybe we'll be Good Samaritans then and have a quick look at that. Still not kind of GDK stop and start. Yeah. GDK kill. Die. Also got another MR. Yeah, it's passed. Might get you to do my initial review for me. Let me send you a link in Discord, I guess.
Oh, GDK in a box.
Yeah, I'm trying to again be good and finish what I started rather than sort of spin up all these crazy ideas and just leave them half baked. I get it documented, then it sort of becomes a bit more official and discoverable and whatever other balls you want to call. Right, categories back. Perfect. So let's, I guess I need to write a quick spec for that. Don't worry if you're zoned out and having a look at what's it for me. Actually have a test for that. Okay, fine. So okay. So can we find out? So we think this is just default behavior, right? If you put square bracket, we think it's something magical about square brackets.
I think it is because that, well, maybe not. If does it do the same for the label quick action? I
Well,
seem
the
to
label quick action doesn't have.
no, but maybe it starts writing the tilde so that it pops up.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. No, I don't think it does though. Oh no, it does. Sorry, I take that back. So it's not going to be in late issue, is it? Is it quick action?
Yeah, I'm having a look at the issue that you sent, the MR that you sent.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that, Marco. Obviously, it's documentation. It's not overly exciting, but
Yeah, but it's really cool actually.
Okay.
7 gigs of the for the virtual machines.
Yeah, and I mean that's the zipped what's it as well. So
Yeah.
you know, what have I changed? What have I changed?
I only found one small typo. That's really cool, by the way, because if that speeds up the process, the only thing is that you would still need to basically update the virtual machine image.
So the
for
idea is initially, you know, maybe we'll release, refresh, whatever you want to call it, once a month. And then if and when we could maybe use Packer or a tool like Ansible or something that would allow us to build it in CI, so you can always pull the latest. Yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah, I was thinking the same for setting up the VM. With Ansible, you might be able to pull it off. Or with Chef, I guess, as well.
So I don't really understand why it's doing what it's doing. Like, how does it, you know, I've got a tilde there, but how
I
does
think
it?
it's something on the client side, on the front end, because
Yeah. I think you're right. And now I've got to remember what was the library? What was the JavaScript library that we've got called?
GFM,
Autocomplete? Was it that?
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I still don't really know why. That's the. I can understand that would mean like if you did type blah contact blah that it does your autocomplete. Great.
Yes.
But why, when you do that, does it?
Uh, because these are the watchers for the uh, references, let's call it that way. I guess we might need to find the watchers for the actual quick action.
Right. Oh, here we go. I do think it could possibly be in here.
Yeah, at slash alias command search. Default loading. Hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out which bit. So um
What does this
so
one?
when you do the slash,
Oh, because when you do the slash, if you type slash, that's also opening up. Yeah.
yeah, that brings up that. But then when you select something from that list,
Uh,
that's the point at which it potentially
yes.
does the what's it. So
So display template, no, because that's creating the drop down.
is it is loading. Okay, but then is there something in there that sort of insert template? That would be
This
it, I
one.
reckon.
Yes.
Right.
The debugger breakpoint in here.
Can we do that?
Yeah, you can. Just type debugger.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So just debugger. Boom. Maybe not. Did I do something silly? Again, maybe cached. Did that MR you're looking at for me, did it scare you that I've uploaded a public and private key or
I saw that, but oh, I mean, you need that.
yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I'm interested to see. Like, I'll probably make sure I flag this one with security. But I just generated a random key that will allow you. You add it to your local machine, and it'll allow you to connect to the VM without having to put a password in 100 times. So I
Yeah,
don't see that. This is a publicly available VM, so I don't see why there should be any concerns about it having a silly password and a publicly available private key sort of thing. So
yeah, I
good.
don't see any issue with that, to be honest.
Right. So
So I guess that TPL will become /spend.
yeah. So
Oh, and you have params.
oh no, it's still there. So reference.
Oh, yeah, true. No, why?
So it's all just one.
Okay, but then that's doing a regular expression to do so.
Yeah.
Oh, and hmm,
It's match.
yeah, because that matched the open square bracket.
Uh,
And what's the value of reference prefix?
of what? Sorry, the
Reference prefix on 223, yeah.
no, still at the moment. So I'm confused. So the regular expression. Ah, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was not interpreting the double square bracket. So
Oh, okay.
this one is escape. So it's explicitly look. Got it. Okay.
So it's building
Okay.
a
I'm
template.
just going to check Git lens quickly, which I probably haven't got installed. But I wonder if that was introduced by the when we introduced like the concept of contacts,
Mm.
because I don't know if there were any.
I'm not really sure because there are other commands, quick actions that use that syntax with these.
Oh, are there? Oh, okay. I know I think we had a look the other day, didn't we?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
so
I think I remember that.
if we do that,
I guess that it's building the reference prefix and the template becomes that. Then when it calls the template function, it simply changes the template from name becomes the quick action and the other part becomes the reference prefix.
yeah.
But then how are labels? And oh, there's the same thing for the tilde. So it's
So
actually only the label and the square bracket ones.
so let's just think about what we want it to do. Um, we it's really frustrating because I kind of don't want it to do anything. Um, unless or until if you start putting the square bracket in front of the spend command, that's when I kind of love it to be magical. But
don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, I mean that would be, it'd be possible, but I think that the code would be pretty horrendous. Like we'd be introducing a whole new thing. I'm trying to think of a simple, because this is kind of counter whatever you want to call it. Maybe we can say don't do it if there's a what's it before it, because this means it's optional, doesn't it? Or doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good option. I like that.
But then why is time optional? Because it's not, is it?
Yeah, that wouldn't really be optional.
So should actually, again, humor me here. Should that actually not be optional at all?
Yeah, I think so. Let me have a look at all the documentation for the quick actions.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I wonder if that's common practice to use square the angular brackets.
Yeah.
Not really, because I'm looking, for example, at the assign quick action. Technically, you require the first user, but then all the other users are optional. But the documentation says basically user 1 at user 2 without the angles.
Whether
Yeah, and the blocked by quick action that needs issue 1 and issue 2. No, maybe only issue 1, but that's still with the angular bracket. And yeah, it's not really. I guess it's up to the developer how to.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, someone probably introduced it, right? And then somebody kind of copied that pattern. I kind of wondered, oh, not again. Don't know why this happens.
Did you enable Vite?
I did, yes.
Yeah, but
it's related to that, or
no, because it was happening to me even before I enabled Vite. And this is a backend thing, not a front end.
But then Vite is enabled in the back end as well, right?
True. Yeah, I'm looking at all the quick action and it's really out to the user.
It's an easy MR to go through and standardize them. Probably, well, yeah.
It would be.
I wasn't sure if it was maybe a way of indicating when there's multiple parameters, maybe.
No, because it's also used for example, for the page or parent epic quick action.
Okay.
Maybe it's used to indicate that it's not a reserved keyword. Because, for example, I'm looking at the parent epic quick action and it's / parent epic and then epic. So maybe they're using the angular brackets to let the user know that it's the actual epic and not a keyword.
I don't need to do something like that. But rejects 101 or whatever I normally end up using.
Yeah, I always use that.
So So before it was like just copy and paste it. It's easiest. Not finding anything for that. If I remove that, it finds that. It looks like that might work.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what it is there. Is it auto? I think it's just auto reloading, right?
And probably
Nice.
yeah. And then maybe we could improve to avoid typing category every time. If, for example, you're on a line for a quick action and you start opening a square bracket, it could do the same check again. Well, not really the same.
Yeah, I definitely like that in future. Same thing with the autocomplete. Like if you do that to then sort of show you the option, the categories. But for now, I think that's a nice improvement. Now the question is, have we got tests? I'm sure we will have. GFM. So spec. Wow, it's a really I don't know why, but I find myself working in back-end world a lot more at the moment. But I can't remember the last time I ran Jest. Fixtures. So now I've got to, excuse me, remember how to generate fixtures.
Oh.
Think you run like a feature spec, don't you?
Yep, I think so.
And hopefully it will be called something. In fact, if I do a search for that, yeah, there you go. I reckon if I run this.
Yeah, that should generate the file.
Oops, daisy. Right. The forget fixtures.
That should work now.
I just know test suites one failed one test. I'm quite confused by that message all of a sudden. Are you or
Why?
because it looks like no tests failed, but an entire test suite failed.
Oh.
Which maybe that's possible. Maybe it's that. Well, I because the fixtures were missing, I couldn't even run the test suite. Oh yeah, look now there's 523 tests. So I think it. I'm
stopped at the first one, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, we should probably try and test it. Oh my god.
This is a big test file.
Oh no, this is too in the weeds, isn't it? I can't write a test for that. No chance. That's way beyond like maybe
try to find try to find an open square bracket in that file.
only 84 of them. Probably would have quote before it. Oh. Instance.
Hmm.
I think that's all right. Or maybe an actual feature spec, but I think that's over the top. I think that's over the top.
Oh, you mean an actual feature spec like opening a page with the
Yeah, comment, adding
oh wow.
slash spend, clicking on it, or tabbing or whatever you do in it. But no, that's yeah, I'm not up for that.
Doesn't
So the alternative, I guess, would be to sort of extract this to a method essentially, and then just test that method.
I mean, that's using the value and
I think that's all it should be using because
nothing
this,
else because yeah,
um,
but you have multiple insert TPL functions
right.
because that's for oh yeah.
Let's just go with it for now. Whoa. So what have we ended up with?
Eh?
Is that in the JavaScript file? I guess that I've got something con save that automatically
Yeah.
1379. Question is, do I want to revert it or do I not want to revert it? I think I'm happy keeping those couple of small.
Yeah. I mean, if you save the file and that updated it, then probably there's some ESLint something that told it to.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The question is, why was it passing the linter?
Question. I think it would have been because it was introduced before. I don't know. I don't know. I just realized I must have rolled back a bit too far at some point
Why?
because didn't we extract this? And
Oh, yeah, true.
I don't know how or when or why, but
Control Z is a bad thing sometimes.
you weren't going to use a profanity, were you, Mark? Or this one, we just return that. Yeah, I don't mean that's. I get so used to like inline, but I think the line length would be too long, right? If I was to try and so I think that's all good. I think that's all good. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we've just added that. Is it worthy or does it warrant a comment, or is that too much?
I mean,
I where the regex is to sort of say that what we're looking for or not looking for. I think it's too wordy because I'll be sort of saying like if there are any mandatory or required parameters that start with a square bracket, then extract blah blah. It's just it's a mouthful.
yes. What I would probably do though is open up an issue
about standardizing and sort of
Yeah.
coming up with what is actually what does a square bracket mean? What does a triangle bracket mean? What does
Well, not actually a square bracket, because square bracket is the beginning of, I mean, it is either one special character, for example, the exclamation point or something.
yeah, valid.
And we run out of those. So square bracket string, and
Yeah.
that's the standard. But I would try to standardize the optional parameters versus the not optional ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was one other thing I'd love to just spend a couple of seconds thinking about before I push this change.
Oh, I just thought about something else
Go on.
that would be nice to have, because this is only checking, it's doing a regex on the whole template. But for example, if you start typing /spend, then you leave a space or multiple spaces before starting to type the next portion of the quick action. So basically try to provide suggestions as the user types, trying to match the template. So for example, /spend space, that's not going to provide any suggestion. You type in the time, then you start typing the date, and that's okay. And then you start typing the open bracket, square bracket, and that should start giving you actually after the date. If you type a space, then the only thing that you can add is the category.
Yeah.
So only then add the category in there.
Yeah.
Because this,
But this is a good example though. We're not that intelligent, because if we add a label,
yeah,
it doesn't automatically add another tilde, which arguably
yeah, but this is different. Is I mean, it's not something already implemented, but this is a different case because you have a list of multiple options.
yeah.
That for the spend action, it's actually a finished set, and the only thing that you can, I mean, if we had, for example, category and then another.
Okay, so let's try a clone. So we pass it a project path, and then I don't think any of them.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't exist.
No, okay. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm fully in agreement that there's lots of nice room for improvement, but yeah, I think this is
No,
plenty
it's
fine.
yeah.
What I was going to say is I'm still teetering on the edge of is category okay or not. Now, there's two reasons. One is it's a bit of a mouthful, but it does what it says on the tin, which is kind of good.
Yeah.
But then I'm actually in the complete opposite direction. Category is quite generic, and what we've kind of done by introducing this, eventually there will be an autocomplete whenever you type this, regardless of whether it's in the spend quick action or even just here. If I was to do that, I'm not sure whether we should be stealing the category word or whether we need something more specific. But then I'm like, oh God, really? Like we don't, that's too much. So, what are our other options?
I know what you mean, but I don't like
First come, first served.
No, I agree with category being maybe too generic, and that at some point a GitLab feature could use the category name,
Yeah.
as we are talking specifically about time log categories. But I mean, typing time log categories every time, yeah, it's long when you have to do it manually. But I don't like acronyms because I never remember, or either I don't remember what they mean or I don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even vulnerability is a long
Yeah.
name. Maybe time cut.
It's but even 2 words I'm struggling. Like, is it a hyphen? Is it an underscore?
Oh,
In
you can
fact,
even, you could
no,
even, yeah.
no, that's the problem. This regex has
No,
to be lowercase and it's got no separators in there.
true. So time cut, all one word.
But that's
And that's the cat that can travel through time.
love it. Love it. Why is naming? I'm sure this is like,
It's like choosing the name for a baby.
absolutely. There you go.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I've not seen this one specifically before, but I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. Um, yeah.
I think there are two type of people that would either solve our issue or decide what to do.
Go on.
The PM or the technical writers.
Okay. Okay. Um, how about we stick with category? This is behind a feature flag. We're not documenting it yet.
Yep.
We put the MR up. We try and get it merged regardless, unless somebody really, really wants to prevent it. But we try and get it merged regardless. But we make a point. In fact, me or you can add the comment now to say, oh, is there a danger of using this? And then I'll resolve that by creating a follow-up. So let's do that
Yes.
now. So get logs. So what have we got? We've got introduce that, and then we've got
and also given the fact that quick action remove the line from the comment after the quick action is applied, we don't even have the risk of having leftovers if we ever decide to change that.
yeah. Optional.
Optional category.
But this is going to fail because the commit message is too long.
Maybe you're still between inside of the 72 max.
Okay, so I think I have broken
That's
it.
prettier. So it was right before.
I guess so. Maybe I'm using like ESLint and it's using Prettier or something like that.
Do you have Prettier installed in VS Code?
I probably don't.
Maybe that's why.
Do I have to configure it or?
No, I don't think so. You should just try to reformat the document and your backend process.
Yeah, I see. So there's not even one configured. So how would I know if it was working before?
It has a mind of its own.
Boom.
Good.
So now I'm going to get diff master this, and the only change should be that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
With one character, you fixed it.
I'm sure I've told you store in the past, maybe even showing you the video or you watched or whatever. But me and Paul had a fun front end pairing session where it took us the whole hour, I think, to figure it out. Single character fix, and it was the word. Let's just put it in here. Text content. But it was a typo, and it was this had been put in,
Yeah.
and like we went past it hundreds of times, but like had to literally copy and paste this word above this word before we're like, I see what's gone wrong. Times. Right, so let's do that then. Let's do that.
And
So
and usually when that happens, then I go on with okay, it's time for a vacation.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I can't comment yet because we've changed this. So I have to wait for the diff to rebuild or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Start drafting my response. Anyway, and should we take a few minutes to create an issue? Because I don't know, is there anything about time or categories or?
For what?
Like just talking about,
Oh, okay.
because they don't exist, right? So, well, they
No, there's one that I opened. It's I think categorizing time spent or something like that. Oh, oh yeah, this was yeah. uh, Labels to time tracking entries. That's the one from me, I guess.
so,
Oh, and I'm assigned to this one.
yes, and I've been involved. So I should actually pop that into the feature flag. Yeah,
Oh, good point. Yeah.
that's the feature. I don't quite understand what the feature issue, because it looks like you no longer put the rollout.
No, yeah, you have to put in the URL for the rollout issue.
Oh no, I think it changed because when I ran the command, it's probably not in my what's anymore. Oh, it is. It said URL of the original feature issue. It doesn't say of the rollout issue.
Oh.
So they've obviously changed that. You know, you didn't used to have these types like work in
Oh,
progress, etc.
I know why, because on line 5 you have rollout issue URL.
Ah, but it didn't ask me that question, did it?
Maybe because when you introduce a feature flag, you're not required to have already opened the rollout issue
I think it always gets flagged though, right? So we've fixed this, and let's create the rollout one here as well. So new issue, just be a placeholder, right? Well, that's weird. It already knows what I want to. I didn't have to tell it.
That's AI. It's an AI feature.
Mind control. Don't remember what the feature flag was called. Just going to do that for now. I know I'll get slapped at some point, but get set in. Yeah, that'll do it. Right, so uh, So the other thing that I was somewhat tempted to do, but I got distracted. But I'm not sure it makes. Oh, does it? I don't know. No, I was somewhat tempted to make this add another condition that says, and there are categories available, because why show them that you can use a category if there are none available, essentially.
True, but then you have the same thing for labels, for example.
I don't know what we do with labels, but there are other things like contacts. We don't show the add contacts quick action if you don't have any contacts in. We don't show remove contacts if the issue doesn't have any contacts attached, etc. So, but I think it's a bit of a step too far at the moment.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, we can always add that later.
So, wash that on there. By this point, hopefully at least one of those pushes will have gone through, so we can now what are we going to call it? A vague. What are we even calling these things? Autocomplete? I don't know. Reference.
Maybe generic.
I don't know. Issue categories, label categories,
Yeah.
etc.
Issue category are technical labels, but yeah, who cares? Without the underscore.
Yeah. Although we could update the regex,
True.
possibly.
I like Timecast.
I do, but I don't like it without a space or some kind of thingy. Did I? Yeah, if I pop a message on. What was that? Sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. More noise in your life, your inbox, your to-dos.
No.
Do you know who the technical writer I really should know for?
Marcin.
That one.
I don't know then. I
Or
am
is,
waiting.
or is it?
No, that one. Oh,
That was that one. Yeah,
yeah.
that was right. Yeah. Okay. We have introduced an additional parameter reference the suspend quick action. Probably triple X isn't the best category to use.
Especially with category.
And prefix here, maybe.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, so I should just pop a couple of do like in there, and then link to this. And then we've got it here again, but who cares? That's fine. And then it wants, oh God. She's plan or product manager? I don't know.
Project management.
I think it's both actually, isn't it? Plan _ project management. Or is it product planning? Oh God.
It's G_ project management, and I don't know any other because I don't have access to. Or is it S_ plan?
I'm gonna go with the group. I'm gonna go with the group. And what is what are you expecting to happen? Nobody complains, and it works brilliantly. What can go wrong?
Nothing.
Users, yeah. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan of, not a fan of these weird, what's this? I don't know if it's just because it's so manual, but right. Cool. I think we're all good. So have you got a couple more minutes or?
Maybe not. It's already past half.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I might just continue streaming, recording, whatever you want to call it, for a few minutes just to see if I can figure out what this annoying error on the console is.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
The is group or whatever it was saying. But feel free to drop off, and I'll catch up with you later on.
If I have to make a guess, it's something behind a feature flag.
I was going to guess for it's basically something we're forgetting to inject somewhere.
Yeah, and the backend is not providing this thing to inject because it's behind a feature flag.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think I've introduced one of those such bugs before.
Oh,
yeah. I'm trying to think.
Group?
No, I don't think it was I can't remember exactly what I think it was, when I added the time or the date filter to the issue search bar. I think it was that I introduced a flag somewhere and wasn't
Oh,
injecting something like that. So
okay.
it looks like it's in work item children, blah 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 blah.
Oh, it's related to the work items. Yeah.
And it's looking for his group to be injected. So if we look everywhere that work item children wrapper is referenced, whoops, a daisy. So we're importing it there
If
and there. So, this is the bit that's quite hard to work backwards, right?
Yeah, I would try to search for is group because someone is providing that.
It'll be an underscore, won't it? Because it gets fixed to change from.
Yeah.
But maybe
Runner destroy, or maybe is group as without the underscore, because on the front end it too wide. Match whole word.
how do you do that? That
Remove.
one.
Yep. Issue board. Index CI. It's definitely on an index file. Oh no, because you can provide from. Oh,
See, this is like if we were providing it, then it wouldn't be erroring.
yeah.
So it suggests to me that we're mounting. So I found two places, didn't I, that were mounting work item children wrapper. But then I've got to go back one more step, right? So I've got to find what places are mounting. So let's just close others. So we've got these two things. So we now need to find what's mounting these. Work.
I mean the back.
No worries, no worries. I'm happy talking to myself. I do it regularly. Okay, so it'll be this one, I reckon. So let's see. So his group isn't found in this instance. Let's go into the group and load the issue directly from there and see if that. Oh no, it'd never be. Because that would just take you into the project. So this is work item links.
Group, I think it's related to the issues being moved to also be able to be created on groups.
Possibly. But then remember, work items can include epics. And this isn't really to do with issue. I think it's probably more to do with issues being kind of properly migrated over to work item or progressing to be moved over to. Okay, so this is what I was trying to do. Okay, so I'm just going to pass it in as false from here for the time being. Is group false. And I think, do I have to string it? And then, close there's something I didn't want to in here. We then is group And in here, I think I then need to is group. How do you convert it in his group?
No, there's a parse boolean.
Parse boolean. Is it right in front of me? It's not, is it? Parse boolean. Ideally, we'll look for it in an index.js. We won't even work this fix, will it? Okay. It's just reloading. Damn yo! How many times do you hit enter or refresh before you give up and GDK restart Rails web? Excuse me. Come on, come on, come on. I'm not going to get too carried away. I'm going to wait for it to fully load, but that looks promising.
And I'm back.
Awesome. I just realized I'm on a branch. So we did that, and we did that, and in that we did that. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Guarantee someone's probably already fixed it by.
I've seen that console error for quite a while.
Yeah,
so
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay. Get checking HP fix missing is screw injection. And I'm going to try and explain where.
But you didn't set the changelog trailer.
Because it's invisible, if that makes sense. It's like nobody cares.
Danger cares.
What was it mainly about me importing? In the wrong order. GitLab UI should be before it. There in a minute.
And now I really have to go.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for joining as always, Mark. Have a great afternoon.
Same to you as well.
Okay. Catch you later.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Take a screenshot of, but we'll do the console after fixing the error. And we'll hop back onto master. So master. So recreation steps. Vectors. Navigate to an issue. Add some labels in a minute. Okay, that's the error. The after is fine, no worries. So we'll label it front end, label it maintenance factor, and we'll label it root project management thing. Awesome. We'll find something to review. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in.